When I was under 5, I had like accident with my skull involving my head and getting stitches on my head. I experienced brain damage. I had to repeat a year, and I wasn't allowed to do visual arts. I wasn't allowed to do artistic things, and I already had a inclination to that. I drew, even though I had to do all of the sciences and all of the math. And it's like, I'm playing the fucking drums. It's like, that's the heartbeat of rock and roll, you know? Shit, how do you draw? Fuck, how do you paint? I have to teach these kids. So I was literally just learning how to draw while I taught them how to draw, learning how to paint while I was teaching them how to paint. And so like totally crashed courses I'm teaching. I never did any of that stuff. I did like basically music for my fine arts degree. That was my art project. There are people in the music scene, fine arts scene, educational scene, they don't think anything like people with ADHD at all. They are so incredibly logical. It's like starting too many things, simultaneously wanting to be like a writer, a journalist, photographer, visual artist, a musician, a rock star, a teacher, and really successful in business. And you're starting these projects that can't be finished. It's like having 5 things cooking and you've only got 4 spots. You want us to like write the song that brings peace to the universe. And it's like, we're like, yeah, we can do it. We can write the best song ever.
God gave rock and roll.
Hottest band in the land. It's gotta be Kiss, right? I got into Kiss, part of a midlife crisis. Realized how fucking cool Ace Frehley was. Oh, In Excess.
What's your weirdest moment?
There was a paw flip. And I don't understand that I've sat with the tangata whenua. So I get up and I pretend that I know this waiata. So I stand up with them and mumble my way and pretend I know, like an All Black, singing the national anthem, terrible sort of like lip syncing. First years, who I'm supposed to be sitting with, come by and hongy every one of us. So I hongy every single first year. The real game changer was finding out my partner also had ADHD. And so like, there's things that we totally respect about one another and the way that we do things. That's a real game changer.
This episode, we have Nick Clark from Electric Tapestry, a musician and an art teacher. He shared how he overcame his challenges in life, including ADHD and his passion for music and art. From struggling in school to playing gigs with his band, Nick's story shows the power of creativity and embracing who you are. Don't miss this inspiring conversation with Nick Clark. Before we begin, I have a quick favor to ask. If you're enjoying the show, be sure to subscribe, follow wherever you're listening or watching. This will help with the algorithm, so those interested in the same kind of stuff can find us. Thanks and enjoy. Welcome, Nick. Okay, go. Welcome and thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
Yeah, good to meet you. Good to meet you. Again. Yeah.
Again, part 2. Yeah. Right. I guess we can start it from the beginning of time.
Okay, yeah.
Who is Nick?
Yeah. But in the beginning, I felt like I've experienced brain damage like quite early as a child from an accident I sustained, and I think that coupled with the fact that I went to a Jewish school, which really fucking confused me because the Aleph, which is like the Jewish alphabet we had to learn, like looks like an N. So straight away I was learning how to write my name like an N, but also knowing it's the first letter of the Jewish alphabet really kind of threw me off. And we didn't speak Jewish at home, we didn't speak Hebrew. And when I was under 5, I had like some sort of like accident with my skull involving my head and getting stitches on my head. And then I had to repeat a year when I moved from the Jewish school, which wasn't really working out for me, to a private all boys school in Auckland. But that one, which I can't name, was rife with abuse. Not just sexual, but psychological. They really tortured the boys, almost like a jail. And it was like a little plot of England in the middle of South Auckland. You know, so next to all the palm trees and all the natives and stuff like this, there's this weird winding path, and all of it's this school in South Auckland. And it's pretending to be England. It's like got these flat lawns, it's got these chapels, it's got oak trees, you know what I mean? And birch trees and shit like that, and it's got a fake river going through it. And
Fake river,
yeah. Well, like it's actually part of a fountain whole installation of the school. So like, yeah, but do you know what I mean? It's like trying to be almost like terraformed England. And I wasn't allowed to do visual arts. I wasn't allowed to do artistic things. And I already had a inclination to that. I drew, even though I had to do all of the sciences and all of the maths, like stats and calc, biophysics, math, physics, chem, and bio, like just for no other reason than to say, oh, but if you want to become a doctor, you can. If you want to do law, you can. You can do engineering if you can. Like keeping, you know what I mean? Just do well in these.
Except art.
Except no, I wasn't allowed to do it. It was outlawed, and so like it probably made me more interested in art. And then my parents actually made me play a musical instrument instead of doing a sport. It was seen as a very Jewish thing to do, and most of the kids that my mum wanted me to be friends with were learning already how to play piano or violin, and a couple of the cooler ones were like, because it was the 80s, right? It was like, oh, my son's learning the drums. And then that was like my
starting point
into rock and like, alternative music scenes. Before then, I was such a nerd. I bought like the Jurassic Park soundtrack because I was interested, because I was part of orchestras and stuff like this. But I think that the drums is the instrument that like was the gateway drug to rock for me. Like knowing someone who's like, wait, are you playing the drums for an instrument? Like, my mum makes me do piano and violin and cello and shit like this, and just like all the other Jewish guys, right? And it's like, I'm playing the fucking drums. It's like, that's the heartbeat of rock and roll, And realizing that was an instrument, yeah. And then from there, I went to fine art school.
In Auckland as well?
In Auckland as well, at Elam School of Fine Arts. So I was doing visual stuff, but also some of it was performance stuff and sound stuff, because I'd already got jobs in radio. So some of what I got in a visual arts degree was actually a whole lot of like sound stuff and animation stuff and like fucking around with paper and projections and TVs and screens and cameras and shit like this and performance art and people doing shit. It wasn't really drawing. So only when I became a art teacher, which I am now, did I have to get really good at drawing. I was like, shit, how do you draw? Fuck, how do you paint? I have to teach these kids. So I was literally just catching up like one lesson ahead of these guys, learning how to draw while I taught them how to draw, learning how to paint while I was teaching them how to paint. Oil paint, never done that fucking before. And so like totally crash courses I'm teaching. Just like fucking hell. So my understanding of teaching for arts has always been like, holy shit, I just better check that out. Oh, they're doing origami, like I better try that in the weekend. Or sculpture, like I never did any of that stuff. I did like basically music for my fine arts degree. I'd like recorded my band's like entire double fucking CD opera.
You recorded?
Yeah, that was my art project. My art project at art school was just recording a fucking double concept album. You know what I mean? So I was just doing music when I was supposed to be doing fine arts. So yeah. Anyway, so long story short, obviously it would have been cool if I'd never had that brain damage at all.
How did you handle those situations?
All of them badly, probably. Like probably indulging in recreational drugs as a way to deal with stress and all of those changes of life, and all those stresses, like as well. It's just yeah. I think that's a part of being ADHD and sort of like borderline autistic, is that like I'm able to sort of see that in myself. It's like, oh, that's something that they probably would expect you to do, given that they know you're, you know what I mean? Like anyone that knows that you've got something to explain a slightly different behavior, if they have that, then that's what they'll expect. So it's just like, oh, they just did the research. Like, this is what this guy has, this is what you can expect from him as a, I don't know, as a whatever. As a person, as a teacher, as a parent, as a musician, like it really does make some interactions with people quite hard, because there are people in the music scene, there's people in the fine arts scene, there's people in the educational scene. They don't think anything like people with ADHD at all. They are so incredibly logical. And the weird thing about ADHD and people that don't is that when they finally find out what the symptoms are and what the, like the so-called
kind of
terminology for it is, right? Like, they start realizing everyone around them is the same. Like all their friends, or their partners, or even their kids and their kids' friends. They're like, oh, we're all either ADHD or non-ADHD. And these kind of like, those mycelium sort of like connection points, like mushrooms. Like those, I feel like, are two very different things operating in society, and there's not a lot of interaction between people. There's not a lot of movement. There's not a lot of breeding between them, or seeing between them, or interacting, or even doing business. And they're not even aware of it. Like it's like having a neighbor who's like diagonally across from you. You might never know that fucker ever. You could have a car crash with that guy, and like be dealing with lawyers between each other, and have no idea you like literally share it.
Neighbor, yeah.
Yeah. Who knows who they are?
During the first time that you've heard, how you felt during the time that ADHD is manifesting. I'm just gonna use that term. ADHD is manifesting when you were growing up. How does that look like? Like, did your parents bring you to the doctor, or?
No. They didn't want to deal with the shame of having a son that had some sort of learning difficulty. So their first response was incredibly, almost sarcastic, is that they sent me to a specialist to see if I was deaf. And within a minute of being there, the doctor was like, "No, Mrs. Clark, this boy's not deaf at all. Like, I don't know why you're here. He's obviously not." I mean, like within seconds, really, he's aware. And that was her go-to sort of like a specialist. Of course it's not that. Of course it's something else. Like, it was that I didn't see things when she said like, Nikki, look out the door. Look at that with a finger. And I'd be like playing, and I'd be in complete dreamland. I'd be like sort of like in the middle of actually driving through lava.
In the zone?
Yeah, I was totally, imaginary, like dealing with elements and thinking I'm a wizard. Like I wasn't going to answer her. And then she thought that was deafness. That's not deafness. That's a child who has too many things going on. There's too many tabs open. Like it's like you're an internet explorer. You just like
open everything.
Yeah, you got a gazillion tabs. Like, don't close the tabs. And they're all working in the background. They're all sort of like playing, and you're switching between them. And so I say, in terms of manifesting, it's like starting too many things. Like simultaneously wanting to be like a writer, and a journalist, and a photographer, and a visual artist, and a musician, and a rock star, and a teacher, and really successful in business, and like really good and know-how and all this. Like, you can't fucking do that with that shit. And so you're starting these projects that can't be finished. They'll never get finished. They're all like sort of like to-do pile, and you're just like sort of like flipping between them like you're cooking. You're just sort of like this pan. It's like having 5 things cooking and you've only got 4 spots.
Right.
You know what I mean? Okay. That's how it feels. And you're like sort of shift them around because you've got to give the one that's off the pan some time, and they're interests or passions. And so you might have one that's more important. Like for me, music is quite important, right? I love playing music with my mates, and I love writing music and performing it. Fucking great. I love doing it. It gives me purpose and stuff. But it's a very different energy from writing, which is something else I want to do. But those are going on with like family commitments and sort of like relationship commitments, and sort of even my friends as well as a 6th sort of thing. So I got to give a bit of, like heat to this. I got to like ask them to go fishing with me every now and again. Like and sometimes like you've got to spend some time with your kids, and like that's a big important part as well, which is big family. It's like there's got to be family time as well. So
you have kids, right?
Yeah. I've got 3 kids. I had one kid very young. So like she's like at uni now. But with that same partner, I've had my other 2. But the other 2 we've had at a more sort of sensible average age for a New Zealander. Like most Kiwis have kids, they like sort of in their late 20s to early 30s. You know what I mean? Like nothing past 35. You know what I mean? Like they, good eggs, right? But we had our first like girl when we were like in our early 20s. It was very unusual, and like whenever we met with parents for her or school pick up and drop off, like we just seemed like teenagers to these people. And it's like, oh, you're a real parent, you've got a fucking car, and like, oh, we're still living in a flat, and we're like walking to get the groceries, and we're dealing with a kid. And we were studying, we were doing fine arts at the time. That's when I was doing the double opera of like and like that was Elam School of Fine Arts.
So were you like diagnosed, when was it?
Actually, very recently, but that was through the public sector because we didn't have private insurance, and so I was talking about difficulties I was like encountering in my job, and the principal at the time said that we'll pay for you to have a diagnosis.
Too expensive, right?
Yeah, but they said that they'd do it because I said like I'm on the public sort of health system. You know, that's what I've been on this for my broken leg, right? Like I'm totally on the public.
So when did you start moving here from Auckland?
Over a decade ago, 12 years ago.
Okay. What made you decide to move here from Auckland?
Well, I had like a midlife crisis, complete panic attack.
Sorry to cut you off. How old are you, if you don't mind?
I'm 42.
Okay, so that's the midlife crisis.
Yeah. Oh, much earlier. Like this is like, so it would have been like, my mid-30s, right? And like women go through that too because like, remember at the same age, that's seen as too old for having kids, you know? And so like for them, their like biological clock is like ringing around the same time. And if you're going out with someone who's going through that at the same time, you know, like that has huge ramifications because like your partner is going through like something like a realization. It's the same sort of thing with going out with women who are going through menopause as well, according to my older friends. Like when they're going through that, like it's a fucking ride. You know what I mean? So if you're staying by her, you probably have like some sort of like realization of your life as well as a man, but it's just not manifested through your body as much. But then there's other things just like breaking your leg or whatever, and just like these complete realization wake-up calls that make you aware of how fragile you are as a human being, and you're just like a culpable and you know, innocent and sort of like able to be, you're very vulnerable. As a being.
How do you handle those like recording, band practice with your ADHD? Like, how do you stay focused on what you're doing?
Well, because I did everything through the public sector, I got like diagnosed by a psychiatrist from that free thing that my place of work offered. So I do actually have Ritalin, and I do have like medications that I can use, and I have actually found Ritalin really useful when I've got like, not every day, because then it sort of like loses its purpose and it's not a good thing to have every day. So if you cannot have it every day, then that's better to not do that. So I actually choose the times when I'm doing like a really, really boring task that ADHD would not allow me to finish because it's not interesting enough. And it's like, is this interesting? It's like, is this engaging? Are you passionate about this? I have to ask that myself with everything. And if the answer is no, I find it way harder to do it because like there's no heart in it, there's no passion in it, there's no, you know, I'm not doing it. So that's when I need the Ritalin. And when I do the Ritalin, it's like, oh yeah, tick, 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 and I don't get bored. I find it interesting, the ticking. I find it interesting, the checking. I find it interesting, the most boring of tasks. You know, I have to do this and do this. If it's just moving around doing different things, like photocopying this and then putting a thing up and then clearing a board and then moving some furniture and then moving out and then doing your own work, I could do that all day because that's just like, blah, 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 yeah, like bouncing around. But if there's a time when I have to do one task for an entire day, I need Ritalin. Right. Definitely, if it was that extreme, doing one thing for a whole day.
Did you find your ADHD a blocker? I'll use the word blocker to your artistry.
Did it make things hard for my artistry? Yeah. Yes. Yeah, in a way. I found a rhythm. I found a rhythm that's useful for my ADHD, especially when I'm like in my art studio at night. My kids have gone to bed, I'm still up. Maybe I'm having a couple of beers late into the night, right? And I'm in the garage and I know I'm going to be very flighty between things, right? But there's ways you can capture that rhythm, that flightiness of ADHD. And my way was saying, there's the sink, there's this painting, and there's this painting, and there's this painting. And you've written a to-do list on each one. And you can't really paint wet into wet on all the paintings. So you're going to have all the paintings out, all the palettes out. The sink's right there. Throwing the paint outs here. Here's a rubbish bin. Radio, which is just like playing radio, so I don't even have to like choose the songs on. So I leave it to fate, because if I'm choosing a playlist and get obsessive about that, it's like, that's what's cool about radio. It's all decided for you. It's like, oh, this sucks. Oh, can I be bothered changing a station? And you just like go with it. and like someone else is making the decisions for you. That's why radio is fucking cool and so useful to paint to. So I can't recommend, if you've got intense ADHD, to like trust the radio sometimes, or to trust somebody's playlist. Like if somebody's like sent you a playlist on Spotify and just like, I'm gonna play the whole thing, or I'm gonna play this whole album through. You know, I'm just like, you put it on and you forget about it. That's the idea of music, and an hour is a fucking good time. We got rid of that. Now it's like, oh, which song next? Oh, this song next. And everyone's like obsessive about their device, like, which song is next? Which song is next? In the old days, how music is supposed to be perceived is you put that fucking CD on and you like play it and it's like, let's see what this album is like. It might change my life in 55 to 65 minutes. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Or sometimes side A, side B of cassette.
Even that's cool, because that's a good 15 minutes. You know, good 15 minutes, like do something for 15 minutes, and then it's way less effort to just like flip it around, put the needle to the back. You know, like, let's keep the same vinyl out. Let's see what's on the other side. Did we play both? And sometimes the cool thing about vinyl is like, if the A side was so good, you're like a Beach Boys A side, you're like, holy fuck, we're just gonna listen to that whole side of that record again.
And then
it's so
rewind.
good. Yeah, just to get it again. We're just gonna run out the grooves on the A side of all these Beach Boys ones. Because, oh man, but yeah, like I was saying, like Tears for Fears, Beach Boys, some 80s sort of like composers, like even some Phil fucking Collins songs. Like you start to realize how clever they are as a pop song, and you're like, fucking hell, you cannot improve on that. Oh wait, you can, because the drums sound shit. So you just sort of like rough it up a bit, and you do a kind of like a 2020 sort of like slightly weird, almost Radiohead-esque sort of like interpretation. Get some electronics on there, get some keys on there, punk rock guitarist. Maybe like we sing it unusually, or we put some weird effects on our voices or on our guitars or whatever.
And the storytelling too, like.
Yeah, it's a different voice, it's a different generation, and.
What else should I ask you? I'm just conscious that your band might.
Oh, so we can just keep going until.
Yeah. So do you teach music?
I have taught music. I've taught guitar, but I currently don't. I just do visual arts.
Visual arts. Do you have like anyone from your class with ADHD?
Most of my classes, especially my seniors.
Okay.
Now that I recognize ADHD, I notice that most of my best students and most of my senior classes, when they've chosen to do painting or they've chosen to do art or design or photography, they're all the ADHD kids. They have the same behaviors as me.
Diagnosis aside, right?
Yep. Oh, I'm not going to diagnose them, but it's just like they're showing all the signs. And whether they're, because I had parents that weren't able to admit that there was anything wrong with me. I had parents that like refused to diagnose it. And it's a proudness thing. And like at a school which is like it's a private school, right? Everyone's rich. Or everyone's like putting that money aside for that education of their daughter. It just means you've got a commitment to it, you know. And some of them are too proud to diagnose, but I can see it now. And in my classes, when they're not choosing visual art, or they're not music kids, or they're not, you know.
I have my youngest is autistic. We have a group like all dads group of autistic kids, and then someone made a comment like, if you want to have your child diagnosed with autism, bring that child to a group of parents and they will tell you if that child is autistic.
Yeah.
It's not like a formal diagnosis, obviously, but based on experience.
I trust that more. I would trust that more.
I was laughing, like, I thought they were just joking, like, and suddenly because you're aware, now you can like not diagnose, you can say that, oh, that's an autistic behavior.
Yeah. But I would trust that way more than doctors now. Like, I don't feel like the public New Zealand health sector is like really prepared and like, you know.
And that diagnosis is just good.
They're not interested.
Yeah, and it's just good as its purpose. Like, if you need, like for ADHD, for example, you need medications because you are on the extreme ADHD. Obviously, that's a good point, but I don't know. This is just my opinion. Like my son, my eldest son, we kind of know that he is autistic as well, but we didn't bring him to a diagnosis because he can survive and he knows the kind of like how to navigate the system.
Right.
So just the youngest, which is kind of, he's in the extreme.
But that's the thing, is that it's a spectrum, and then on top of that spectrum is people that have coping mechanisms for it. Because like you can be, it's like someone described it kind of like the weather pattern sometimes. So they'll say like, it is this amount, it's 20 degrees, but because of the wind, it's going to feel like 18. You know what I mean? So there's people that are actually like really not coping, but on the verge of sort of holding it together, and they've got coping mechanisms and stuff like that, but they're not really showing that stress because it's unprofessional to show that stress. So they are just fucking coping with their wacky thing. As long as these criteria fit, they'll do their job. They're fine. Two of them go. It's like being on a 3-footed chair. You know, like smash one of those legs, and it's just like someone's going down. You know, but people might not even be aware what those trigger things are. It's like they need to be complimented at least once a month for doing what they do for the company because they feel as if they're being underappreciated. Yeah, which basically comes to with respect and admiration and acknowledgement and all these other kinds of things. But some people really need them. Yeah. And you might not even be aware, even if you were employing this person, that like every month they need to hear that they're doing a good job. Otherwise, they need to hear good boy, good job, good dog. You know what I mean?
Like a baby, like
yeah. They need to, and some people like really need fucking Friday drinks. It's like if I'm not going to be social with these fucking cunts that I have to work with, at least once a fortnight we can get together and have one beer together. No, maybe two. You know, like for them, that's a sort of like an absolute, it's part of the contract, right? And they have to get along with people. They have to be able to have joy. Other people are like the absolute opposite. It's like, if I can get by and not talk to anyone I don't need to, because I just like want to go in, do my job, I'll do it well, I'll look after the kids, but I don't want to fucking talk to you people unless I absolutely need to. You need me to do a class? Send me an email. I will do that. I will be there. But don't fucking talk to me. Don't approach me. Don't bring me into the socials. I don't want to do a potluck dinner. I don't want to go to the staff fucking dinner at the end of the year. We don't want to go to the staff drinks. No. I don't even like the staff room. You know, so you don't know what triggers they're going to be. And like, I know ADHD people, and like, it could be like one of those three, totally different ones, or even two, you know, of these weird things. And that's what's holding them together. They're just coping there. Yeah.
Do you have that moment sometime where you just want to be left alone?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like during my accident, there were some times I just wanted to be in isolation. You know what I mean? Because I didn't really have that isolation in hospital. And then I got home and everyone was like hyper concerned. People were showing up all the time. And I knew it was a lot of effort to like sort of like grow new bone, you know? And it's like, it literally makes you tired. And there's a fucking titanium rod down my tibia. So like, tibia, sorry. So like, I've got it growing and I'm supplying my weight on a piece of vinyl.
Right. So when you were operated, you have medications on that. Do you take Ritalin as well? Like, what's the effect?
No, because I wasn't doing, because that was quite stimulating, being in hospital and being told what to do and like writing down things and then doing this and then doing exercise and then going to the physio and learning how to use the crutches again. Not that was new because I'd broken my foot a couple of times as a kid, but like, you know, I found that fine. I couldn't, it wasn't a Ritalin required task. It was actually quite stimulating. I was finding people and people were coming in and I was doing that. I was dealing with shit. I was like paying bills even while I was in hospital and like sorting shit out for school. So like, as long as I could go bounce around ideas and tasks, I don't get bored. I can do it without Ritalin. As soon as you ask me to do one thing for the majority of the time or to concentrate for an extended period of time on one particular thing, the only way I can do it is with Ritalin because like I cannot deal with such a long time of sustained focus on one thing. I could bounce all day. I'll get shit done. The place will look kind of half clean and sort of kind of class messy, but like some parts will be cleaner than when you left them. Some parts will be messier. There's not going to be an overall sort of like clean, but some parts will be better. You know what I mean? I don't know what. Could be the bathroom, could be the kitchen, could be the outside deck. There'll be something will be worked on. Plus, I probably would have written something and written something and like practiced my music and contacted people and done correspondence. I can bounce fucking all day. But, and a lot of jobs are bouncing around all day. Like if you think about like how many fucking interactions you have in a busy workplace, like showing up to work and like basically taking caffeine like a drug and going bounce, with other people that normally don't bounce, but because they've had heaps of caffeine and sugar, Everyone's just like, you know, like teachers are given like cakes and muffins and, oh, we've got this special coming in. It's like, oh, we got cupcakes, everybody. It's like, plus everyone's like fucking downing themselves in coffee. You know what I mean? And caffeine is a drug. So it makes ADHDers maybe a little bit more hectic, and it makes normal people kind of like that kind of like energy of bounce or that kind of spirit. It's probably different because they're not ADHD themselves. But what I mean is that they'll just get into that same sort of like speed and not sustained focus on a particular task sort of thing, just everyone doing everything. But for one boring task, I would absolutely require medication.
So what's the most boring moments in your life? And
Data entry.
Admin stuff, right?
Yeah. And another one is like doing animations for kids. So if they send me a whole lot of files and then I have to like render each one. And so it's like putting on their pattern that they've had. So like it's a skin wrap around an object or face or something like that. So I have to like load all their skins because they don't come with their file. And then I load them into the file, and then I go render. I'll just check at the lighting. It's like, just make sure that they fucking put a lighting on because some of them don't do lighting. So like I render it and it's just like black. It's like, did you put a light in the thing? I should have checked, but did you not think? So some of them don't even put lights in. So you check that as well. And then rendering them. Ooh, that's the most boring thing. And like doing that for a whole 2 classes. Like load, render. And then like just waiting for your laptop to do it and then coming back and it's like 2 hours later. Okay, good. Student 1, right. Load, append it, right, all the things. And then keeping a note of like the students have done, like ticking them off, crossing them off. Like what was they doing? Was they ticking or crossing? Fuck it. I don't remember what I did. Was it circling? Shit, what does the circle mean? That is the worst.
Okay.
That is the worst for me, yeah. Because that's not bounce energy. That's not like feeling like a pinball.
How did you deal with it? If you're kind of like...
If I have to do that boring stuff, that data entry, that sort of like that's when I need medication.
Right.
But I try not to do those tasks. And I don't think I'm in a, like, to be honest, I'm not in a job market where I'm doing a lot of data entry. There's people that have got way more data entry, way more boring day-to-day tasks than I have. But some of my tasks are sort of like boring and I've got access to it but I understand like some people's jobs are like, which are very well paid and like I totally respect them, but they're way more data entry than me. I should count myself lucky because I don't really have that much, yeah, considering. So, yeah, so that's my coping mechanism. I don't have to do it very often.
Okay. Lucky you.
Yeah, I know. There's some people that really have to, and I really feel for those people because like doing boring tasks when you don't want to do it, and it being part of your job description it's very hard. My heart goes out to them. Like fucking hell, that is one hard slog. But I feel like an art teacher, I can get away with a lot of bounce and movement between tasks
But you can't do painting while you're waiting for that render, right? I'm assuming you need to.
Oh, I could. Yeah, I could. But yeah, I could paint at the same time. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So it's not like you need to check every instance of that rendering.
Oh, no, you don't. Sometimes it crashes in the middle. Sometimes it'll just run out of memory and it'll be like, what time did it happen? Because like you can't just leave it for 12 hours. You come back and be like, oh, I had a problem. It's like, fuck, when did the problem have? If you had like a camera of like of what was happening on the computer at that time, it might have like run into an error like within 60 seconds of you pressing play, and now you've just wasted all that time thinking it was rendering.
Right. And your kids, in terms of your ADHD, are they aware about it, or your wife is?
Are they aware of me? No, I don't think any of them, and I don't think most people at my workplace, except the principal who's now left, knew that I was either. I think some people might suspect, but on the most part, most teachers who teach things like maths and physics and biology and even the PE teachers, they're not ADHD thinkers. Like most art teachers I interact with, I found out are. Most art students are. You know what I mean? And same with photography students, painting students. The seniors that choose it are have the same way of thinking as me, majority. But they're the majority, is what I'm saying. There'll be some people that will go do it and be like, oh, okay, you were okay. Yeah, you think that way.
Borderline.
Yeah. But it has made teaching easier. Right. But it's not all teachers have it. I think that mainly it's art teachers, and I think it's mainly art students. And then what's weird is that when you think you kind of know the symptoms, you realize that like most of your friends are, most of your bandmates are, you know what I mean? And it goes both ways. There's people I've talked to who don't have ADHD, and they end up being in bands and have friends and relationships and like girlfriends and boyfriends with people that don't and aren't. And so it's a big sort of like fracture through society, like of these people that don't really interact with each other because they think quite differently. Right. And it's, as far as I know, it's like split quite evenly in terms of like people's genetic makeup and where they're from and like sexuality and stuff like that. It seems like very evenly Steven, sort of like
spread out.
Yeah, yeah.
What's your weirdest moment where people find you weird?
My first day of art school, I came really late to, and there was a porphyry, but it was on the roof of a old school. No, but in Auckland when I was at university, very first day of university at art school, and it's on the roof of an old children's hospital that's been converted to an art studio for the first years. But they have a porphyry in the front, and I get in with some kids that are going up, and I was like, oh, you're going to the porphyry? And they're like, yeah, quick, jump in. So I go to the top in the lift with them, and I totally not aware, totally colorblind to the fact that all of the people that I caught the lift with are Māori, right? And we get off on the top floor, and they sit quite close to where they got off the lift, and I just sit in the middle of them, like almost smack bang. It's 4 on this side, 4 on this side, I'm just like bang in the middle, just like, oh wow, here I am at the porphyry. I'm like symmetrical. Like I'm just like seeing the entire sort of like roof. And they start the ceremony, and I don't understand that I've sat with the tangata whenua. And like the manahuru is like who I should be sitting with. They all came in ages before, but because I was late, I just went with the ones that like are the acting sovereign sort of like home native people, right? And I'm just in the middle, and they're just accepting me as well. I was like, I don't know this fucking cunt or whoever. We're all just here, we're all just representing. And they get up and they do a waiata. So I get up and I pretend that I know this waiata, which I don't. I've never heard it before. But because I'm in the middle, I can't sit down because these people have stood up suddenly. These people have stood up suddenly. Everyone's faces are turned to us. So I stand up with them and mumble my way and pretend I know, like an All Black singing the national anthem. That level of terrible sort of like lip syncing. With a waiata I've never heard before. There's no guitar, by the way. It's just them singing. So I'm just like, kind of get through it. And then there's 2 that we do, kind of get through the other one. And then the whole goddamn first years, who I'm supposed to be sitting with, come by and hongi every one of us, including me. So I hongi every single first year as I go past, meeting them, just like, hey. And I recognize some of them because some of them have been there for orientation week and like met me before, and it's like, what the fuck are you doing here?
Why are you doing hongi?
Like, yeah, while I'm doing hongi, but like it's all supposed to be a ceremony, so they're not supposed to be saying anything. So they're just like watching me, going, fucking Nick, what the fuck, dude? Like,
so how does that feel afterwards? That like awkward feeling because like
I just found it funny. Like it's just like, yeah. I mean, there's been other extremes where like I think like more recently, right? When I was a teacher, they had this thing for gifted and talented students, right? And I was supposed to lead it. So like it was this little kind of funny game, and it was sort of like looking at an image and looking at a list of words. And everyone was given the thing, and like it was, and I went through with different groups. I was the teacher there, and like there was all these other kids doing it, right? And we were just helping them. And we went from group to group trying to help them with this image and this keywords. And I completely misunderstood the point of the exercise, completely misinterpreted the meaning of the game. Absolutely. Put all these girls wrong, put all these students wrong, just coming and saying, oh, no, what you're supposed to do with that is supposed to be this. Totally got them on the wrong foot. They all lost all their points because I was like, holy shit, so I just reinterpret it wrong just as a teacher. And they explained it again at the end when they like compared points and who had actually won. None of the girls I'd helped. Of course, because they'd totally gotten the wrong end of the stick, and that was the whole problem. And I could not understand what they were doing. It's like, what? This is such an illogical fucking roundabout way. Like, you should have just made it this. And in my fucking stupid mind, without talking to someone, what they should do is this. I just concocted in my mind that was the way they were doing it suddenly now. And so when I was going around and thanking people, I was just thinking of it at the more logical way that the game should have been played. Not the way the game is played, but the way the game should be played, according to me.
According to the rules.
Yeah. I'll just make up my own rules and be like, you know what the rules should have been, and then just invent them. But yeah, there's been lots of instances like that when have got the wrong end of the stick completely, or it was hard to get my driver's license for a while, like, and understand
how challenging is that? Like, if you have ADHD, are they gonna look for some evidence or some?
Well, it's not on your license or anything like that. It's not really.
Like you pass or fail?
It's only in schools. It only exists in schools. When you're an adult, it doesn't exist. Doesn't exist. There's no records in it anywhere. No employer says, no one puts it on their CV. No employer is aware of or should be aware of. And it's very weird for adults to go up to tell their boss and say, by the way, I just want you to know that, like. But when you're a kid, holy shit, all your exams are way easier. Let this way. Oh, we're going to photocopy all notes for the students. So students are very well assisted, right, when they're in schools. I was more assisted when I was in schools. People were aware that I had ADHD or some sort of learning difficulty, but the most obvious one was just repeating a year, which wasn't the best way to do it, and my parents completely misinterpreting, thinking I was deaf. But when you're in school, you are very well supported if you have ADHD.
Right.
And then as soon as you enter university, or as soon as you enter the workplace, like, ADHD is not mentioned at all, totally blind, totally invisible.
Like, I have ADHD. Oh, cool. Okay, let's
get
get back to work.
Well, anyway, I'm going to send you 2 email reminders for this. It's like, that doesn't help me at all. That just makes me feel fucking paranoid now. As per my last email that you didn't respond to, which was just a reminder, and I said don't have to respond to, I'm just going to send this one just as per my last, fuck off. Like, you don't need that support. But it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. When you're a teacher, you're expected to basically like, oh yeah, all of these reports done within 3 days, responding to the exam. Fucking hell, that's data entry. Writing reports is hellish for ADHD. Very boring. That's data entry. Very boring. Because you're trying to make them all different, and then some of the kids are just like, listen, you just deserve the same report. Like, what I want to say to you, I also want to say to you for. You know what I mean? It's almost like when you write reports, it's like, I can think there's 5 different messages you want to give. 5. Not as many as fucking 25. They don't have to be different. You just make like, I'm disappointed in you. I'm glad with what you're doing. I know what you're doing, but you could reach your potential. You're far, far below your potential. We need to talk. Fucking phone me, right? Those are the only 5 fucking things I need to tell any student. It's either thumbs fucking up, thumbs fucking down, and in between. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? I could give them a score. You've got 5 stars, 4 stars, 3, 2, 1.
Yeah.
But making each goddamn one individual is hell. It's terrible. It's punishment.
If there are aspiring musicians, let alone the ones who are neurodivergent, what would you tell them?
Practice is more important for people that are neurodivergent.
Why is that?
Because it's a very studious and focused sort of activity, like getting better at your scales and knowing your instrument and actually like playing it through. I think that the edge that ADHD musicians have is that they can write loads of songs. They're endlessly inventive. It's like, I got a new song, new melody. It's like, yeah, what happened to that old one? What happened to that one that was classic? Did you write it down? It's like, oh no, I forgot it, and I thought I put it on my phone, but now I've lost my phone. Or, you know what I mean? Like they can, like, do you know what see what I mean? Like, so for those that are neurodivergent, that are musical, and there's definitely some people that are not neurodivergent, not ADHD, that are wonderful musicians as well. But I've got different advice for them. Those that are neurodivergent who are musicians, you need to concentrate more on refining and practicing songs and performances and your instrument. You need to concentrate more on the practice. And those that aren't, they need to let go of those things and be more inventive. with like trying things that are not supposed to work. You might find something that does actually, or it sounds interesting, creates tension, or those people have got to like play against the rules a little bit if they want to be inventive. They've got to like know the rules. Okay, that's great. Now you got to break them. You know what I mean? Now you got to deliberately do something. So, but it shouldn't be a minor chord there. It would actually be a major. It's like, yeah, but it sounds cool when it's not quite right. It's like, it sounds more interesting. It sounds more unique. Oh, that means we're going to change key. It's like, well, fucking just do it. Just for that one bar, change your key. Could be weird. Could be cool. Just do it. And I think neurodivergent people, when they're writing music, they're not aware that they're breaking all these rules. It's like speeding up or like changing the key signature. Or it's like, oh, you're doing like 4 bars of 4/4 and then you're doing the 5th bar of 3/4. Did you mean to do that? It's like, I had no idea. I had no idea that I was supposed to be doing that. It's by accident, you know. So that's what ADHD is, or neurodivergent musicians do, is that they just like break the rules unknowingly. And those that aren't need to learn how to break a bit more.
So looking back, what's the biggest game changer for you with learning yourself as a neurodivergent person?
Actually being aware of it, that I would actually like look up videos about it and documentaries about it, shorts about it. And the real game changer was finding out my partner also had ADHD. And so like there's things that we totally respect about one another and the way that we do things with one another, and we understand like where we're coming from, you know, that we're not crazy. So yeah, like that's a real game changer.
What's next for Electric Tapestry, and what's next for Nick?
Well, we're going to play some shows. We're doing a couple of shows outside of Wellington and playing more and releasing new music. Since my accident, I've actually like gotten used to playing a lot of piano parts. And I think what's going to happen with Electric Tapestry after we do these gigs and record that music is there's probably going to be more songs with piano. Okay. Yeah, so it's kind of the future. A bit more keys and a bit more maybe laptop and electronic percussion in our songs. Yeah.
Couple more questions. What is being neurodivergent to you, and what is ADHD?
Being neurodivergent is like basically what I think it means is like thinking in the minority of how the majority of people think. Like you're in the minority concept of way of thinking. Like that. It means anything not the majority actually, because there's not like neurodivergent people all think the same way. It's more that they don't think the mainstream way, you know? So that's a disadvantage for them, because the first realizations they'll come to, or the easiest conclusions they'll come to in way of thinking and working things out, will be a variety of responses, whereas 90% of the population will all answer the same answer.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that's not cool, because then you're coming to different conclusions. Is it interesting? Yes. Does it help you write songs? Probably. Does it make you do different things all the time and become inventors and create a new, better way of doing things? Does it help you hyper-focus on a particular thing? Yes, it does. That's your fucking superpower. But sustained focus, that is not. And remembering facts and details, no. You know, so just being aware of it. Yeah.
What is ADHD?
I think that it's sort of the same way as understanding thinking, but it's like sort of just a time of, and not just time of attention, but also what respects your attention. Because if it's not interesting enough, it's just like, no, I'm not interested. And so you're judging all these things, like that's boring, that's boring, that's boring, that's boring. It's very judgy, you know what I mean? And you're judging things very fast. And so I think it goes back to like how I was thinking in terms of like neurodivergence. Like 90% of the population has this time in this list of things that they will be willing to spend their attention on. 90%. And then neurodivergent is all the other data entries. It might be like, you guys can usually concentrate for 20 minutes on a particular thing, and most of the population can, 90%, big block of 20 minutes. And there's like 10, 9, 8, 7, 2, this guy's on like a couple of milliseconds. You know what I mean? And so like you're outside of the norm, but you're not all thinking the same way. You don't all have the same lack of attention. It's a spectrum out there. But for the most part, it's not a spectrum. It's like 90% of the population thinks this way, 90% of the population sort of like can concentrate on these things, these keywords, you know, that way of thinking. The rest of the data is very not collated at all. It's just not that.
Right.
It's not that, you know, like it's not that tension. It's not that in terms of conclusive thinking and logical thinking. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Thanks for your time. Appreciate it. And I enjoyed the conversation, by the way, especially with the bands and stuff.
Yeah,
I love talking about bands and stuff.
Yeah. So, music's awesome, man.
Yeah. Thank you and appreciate it.
No worries.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming.
Hopefully we can still do it at some point.
Yeah.
No worries.
Yeah.
Okay. Cheers.
Cheers.
Okay.
I know you gotta do Zalpa. There we go. Yeah.
Welcome,
so-
Nick. Okay, go.
Yeah, it just feels weird in a room full of instruments not to
Yeah.
But yes, good to.
Welcome, Nick.
What was that? A G sharp or?
Oh, you can hear it.
No. That's a good guess though.
Okay.
So, I knew it was a sharp for some reason. Because
okay.
because it was closer to you because it was all the black keys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is a nice one. This is made of wood.
Yeah, that's a xylophone.
Yeah.
Then those ones are glockenspiels.
Oh. Okay.
Or wait, is it the other way around? Maybe that's the glockenspiel and those are the xylophones. I don't know.
Okay. They're instruments.
Yeah.
Again,